Hello everyone. Let's look at shlokas 122 and 123 in Lalita Sahasranamam. deveśī daṇḍanītisthā daharākāśa rūpiṇī pratipanmukhya rākānta tithimaṇḍala pūjitā kaḻātmikā kaḻānāthā kāvyālāpa vinodinī sachāmara ramāvāṇī savyadakśhiṇa sevitā. Let's look at the meanings of the namas. The first nama here is deveśī. Deva Ishi. Ishi means Ishwari. Ishwari is the ruler or the sovereign, the supreme ruler. So, Deva Ishi. So, Deva means gods. And in this particular case, we should not directly interpret that as Devas. It also includes Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. So, she is the supreme ruler of all the gods, deveśī. daṇḍanītisthā. The next nama here is daṇḍanītisthā. So, danda can be interpreted as a stick, or danda is also punishment. In Tamil they say dandanai. So, danda is punishment. So, niti is the set of rules or shastras or the law. Stha means to establish or to administer. So, she is someone who establishes and administers the daṇḍanīti. The daṇḍanīti is the set of rules that ensure that justice prevails. And we saw in the previous nama, she is the supreme ruler of the gods and all the universe. In which case, the main job of a king or a queen is to ensure that justice prevails, that there is law and order, that there is not too much of adharma. And if people are going in the path of adharma, there is a way to ensure that they realize that and correct their mistakes and get back to the path of dharma. So, the daṇḍanīti is the set of rules that allows us to do that, allows the king to do that. So, those are the rules through which they govern their kingdom. So, she is someone who establishes and administers the daṇḍanīti. daharākāśa rūpiṇī. Daharākāśa rūpiṇī. Dahara means small. Akasham means sky. Rūpiṇī means form of. She is in the form of the small sky. So it is said that inside every human being there is a small space inside the heart. It is a cave within the heart, and that's where the Jivatma resides, and that is called as Sitrambalam. So that is something that is inside the space. So everything that is in the macrocosm is also in the microcosm. The macrocosm is the entire universe, and she is everything in the universe, and that same thing is also available inside us, and it's in the microcosm. And the micro is represented here through the word small. So she is in the form of the person who dwells in the inner space of the heart. So that is what daharākāśa rūpiṇī means. pratipanmukhya rākānta tithimaṇḍala pūjitā. So that is one full nama. So pratipad means the first day after the no moon, after amavasya. It's called as pratama. Mukhya means first. And in this context, we have to think of it as starting from. So starting from pratama, raka. Raka means a full moon. So starting from the pratama, the day after amavasya, until the full moon, tithi. Tithi means day. Mandalam is a group, and pūjitā means worshipped. So she is someone who is worshipped from pratama until full moon. So every single day there is a worship that is done for Lalitambika. So we have seen in the previous namas Nitya Shodashika Rupa. So the phases of the moon, there is a Nitya deity for every day of that particular phase. So, and you can see the names of all these deities in the Khadgamala. So there is Bhagamalini, Berunde, all of those are there. So those are all the 16 Nitya deities, and from the Pratama up to the full moon, each one keeps getting added, and then they keep leaving. So it is in the opposite order. So there is a Nitya deity, and there are 15 of them. And then she is the Mahanitya, which is nothing but Amavasya. We all call it no moon. but it doesn't mean that there is no moon. The moon is always there. It is just that from the angle from the earth, we are not able to see moon on that particular day. So that is actually the essence of Maya. So the Maya is that everything is the way it is. Because of our own ignorance, we look at it in a certain perspective and interpret it differently, just like we think there is no moon. So she is the Mahanitya. So from Pratama up to the Paurnami, she is someone who's worshipped on every single day of the fortnight. So that's what this nama means. The next one is kaḻātmikā. Kaḻātmikā. Atmika means essence. So Kala, you can easily think of it as arts, and we've seen before Chatushashti Kalamai. So she is the essence of all the 64 arts, and the 64 arts are singing, dancing, drawing, giving speeches, all of those. There are so many of those. There are 64 arts that one can excel in, and she is the essence of everything. So that is a straightforward meaning. You can look at it that way. But there is also, Kala also means a fraction, a portion of something, an aspect of something, a face of something. So Kala is a unit, if you think of it that way. And Kala also means unit of time. So the entire Kala Chakram is something that is dependent on that unit of time. So we already saw fortnight, right? Fortnight is how we measure time. So she is every single day in that fortnight, she is the essence of that. So fortnight is one, so that is called as Chandrakala. So there are 16 phases of the moon, and together they form a fortnight, which is a unit of time. And similarly, there is Dvadasha Aditya. So the sun has 12 suns, if you see, and each one corresponds to a month roughly. So that is also a unit of time. A month is a unit of time. So she is the one who is the essence of time. So kaḻātmikā can also be looked at as she is the essence of time. kaḻānāthā, she is also the leader of the time. And you can see all of this is connected to the unit of time. And if you see the entire yoga path, the sun, moon and the fire together are called as Tejo Mandalam. And these are so connected to human life. Whenever we mention moon, moon means mind, right? So when the mind is stable, and the sun is directly related to the energy, right? So when the mind is stable and then the energy of the person increases, then the fire is equal to awareness. Generally, every one of us have this fire. That's what is used for digestion. And that fire is what turns into the desire and lust, and therefore it's a basis for reproduction. That fire exists. It can be used for all of these regular everyday activities, or at the same time it can be used to increase the awareness. So when the mind is stable and the energy is increased through all the methods suggested in yoga, then the awareness increases, and when the awareness increases, the person reaches enlightenment. So enlightenment means that person, so if you look at the descent of creation, the very important step in the descent of creation is that at a certain point there is the effect of Maya. And because of this Maya, two new things get added to all the manifested forms. As the unmanifest is moving towards the manifest, this important step called Maya, two important things get added. So one is called as time, Kala, and another is called as space, Niyati. So these two get added, which doesn't apply for that ultimate reality. Until that point, there is no time and space. The time and space happens, and that's why everything that is born has a birth date, and everything that is born has to die one day. So that's when the time becomes effective. And because of that, human beings get stuck into yesterday, today and tomorrow. That time becomes linear for us, and it becomes continuous. And every single thing that is born has a form. So these two apply. So when a person reaches that enlightenment and the awareness increases, at that point they are able to get beyond time. So when they go past time, and this is why the ultimate reality can be anywhere and everywhere all at once, whereas human beings cannot be like that. So that when the awareness raises, the time ceases and the person goes beyond time, at that time they pierce the veil of Maya, and that's when they attain enlightenment. So the unit of time is very close to attaining this enlightenment. That's how they are connected. And she is the one who can lead us towards that. The more a person does their sadhana, cleanses their mind, improves their energy, and raises their awareness, for that person can transcend time. And once they transcend time, they can transform themselves. And she is the leader of that. So the time equals change. So if you think of Kala as unit of time, and she is also the person who can bring about that change. Kāvyālāpa vinodinī. Kāvyālāpa vinodinī. Kavyam means poetry. So poetry is a beautiful thought that is expressed using beautiful words. There is also what we call as varnana. Varnana is describing something in a beautiful way. So kavyam is poetry. Alapa. Alapa means to be addressing, to speaking. So vinodini means to be pleased or to be amused, to take joy from. So kavya lapa vinodini, kavya alopa vinodini means she is someone who enjoys it when she is addressed through poetry. So she enjoys all these beautiful words. Sachāmara ramāvāṇī savyadakśhiṇa sevitā. Sa means together or with. You can think of it as with. Chamaram means fan. Rama is Lakshmi. Vani is Saraswati. Savya means left and Dakshina means right. Sevita means worshipped by or served by. So, Sachāmara ramāvāṇī savyadakśhiṇa sevitā means Lakshmi and Saraswati are standing to her left and right along with a fan, and they are serving her. So what does that mean? Here, if you see in the previous nama, we said she is sadhvi. Sadhvi means she is chaste. That means she is not someone who is easily attainable. You have to do a little bit more work in order to attain Lalita, because what Lalitambika represents, what Parvati or Uma represents is mental clarity, inner awareness, and that is a journey that's not externally focused. As long you have to do deep sadhana inside, look inside, cleanse our mind, then only that stability and mental clarity will be achieved. So anyone who is in that path of mental clarity, focusing towards Lalitambika, that person automatically gets wisdom and wealth. So this is saying that if you pursue in that path, wisdom and wealth will come to you. That's why they are saying Rama and Vani are standing on to her side. So if you worship Lalita, then you're also worshipping Lakshmi and Saraswati, and both of them will also bless. So that's why when we worship Lalitambika, there are two things that can happen. One is we can enjoy worldly enjoyment. So the wisdom and wealth both are required for worldly enjoyment, making smart decisions, having the money, because this world operates with that currency. And Lakshmi is not just that someone who gives money, she is well-being, prosperity, having everything that allows you to feel fulfilled. Lakshmi is that. So all of that will be attained. At the same time, the person will move towards the path of knowledge and wisdom, and then be able to achieve the moksha or liberation. And liberation in our Sanatana Dharma is freedom from desires, freedom from wants, being able to accept what comes our way and then being able to align to that God's will. So that's what is called liberation. And when that person achieves that, they let go of their identity, they let go of their desires, and they also let go of all the conditioning that has happened throughout their life. So the moment we drop the conditioning that has happened throughout the life, at that time, that person is no longer set in a certain way. So which becomes, they become open to the way life can happen. So that's what is called as transformation. So that is something that is possible. So Sachāmara ramāvāṇī savyadakśhiṇa sevitā means that Lakshmi and Saraswati are standing to her side using the fan. You might have all seen in this, it's a white color fan, which has a lot of strings. That's called as chamaram. With the kings, they will be doing that. So they are standing on those sides, which means that by praying Lalita, we will also get wisdom and wealth. So we've looked at the meanings of all the namas. Now let's look at a few short stories related to the nama Kāvyālāpa vinodinī. So we said Kāvyālāpa vinodinī is someone who enjoys it when she is addressed in a poetic language. So that is the meaning of that nama. So let's look at a few things related to it. So we all know there are lots and lots of shlokas on Lalitambika. Out of these, there are 3 that are very special. So one is Arya Dvishati, which is composed by Durvasa. The other is Saundarya Lahari, which is composed by Adi Sankaracharya. And then Mukha Panchashati, which is composed by Mukacharya. So chronologically, these are the 3. Out of all the slokas, these are considered to be very good. And why are they extremely good? They are definitely portraying bhakti towards Lalita, which all the slokas do. But the speciality of these 3 shlokas is that it is very poetic. It is also conveying that bhakti using beautiful words and with beautiful expression. So that is the speciality of these 3 shlokas. So if we look at Arya Dvishati, Dvi means 2, Shati means 100. So totally there are 100 shlokas on Arya. Arya is nothing but Lalitambika. Arya means somebody who is powerful, somebody who is the best among the best, or excellent among everything excellent. So that is what is called as Arya. So the Arya Dvishati is something that is describing Lalita. And we all know Durvasa is one of the foremost Srividya Upasaka. Even today in the Kanchi Kamakshi Amman temple, all the pujas are done according to the rules that were defined by Durvasa. So he is a very well-known, prominent Srividya Upasaka. We all know that Lalitambika is called as Parabhattarika. And there are only 3 people who can call themselves Bhattaraka. The first one is Parameshwara himself. Shiva is called as Bhattaraka because the first Srividya Upasaka is Shiva. The next person is Kalidasa, and all of us know Kalidasa had the direct blessing from Kali. She wrote on his tongue, and that's how he became a great poet. And he composed Shyamala Dandakam at that point. So Kalidasa is also called as Bhattaraka. And the third person is Durvasa. Durvasa has the direct blessings of Lalita, and so he is called as Krodha Bhattaraka. So as we all know, Durvasa is someone who is prone to getting angry quickly, but all his anger will always result in something good for finally. But he is called as Krodha Bhattaraka. And if you look at this Arya Dvishati, it is also called as Lalita Stava Ratnam. Stava means praising, anything that is in praise of somebody. So it is in praise of Lalita, and it's a Ratnam. Among all the things, it is a jewel. It is a gem among all the things that are praising Lalita. So if you look at this Lalita Stava Ratnam, it is an amazing composition of 200 slokas, definitely conveying bhakti, but it describes the Mahameru. As you read through this shloka, you will realize that he is zooming in on the Meru. He is describing every single layer in the Meru. There are supposed to be around 25 layers, and if you go, there is like a lead, copper, tin, bronze, and then finally inside a golden layer there is Lalita's house, the Chintamani Griha. So it is like an amazing zooming in, starting from the outer layer to the each and every layer, and then he zooms in. He talks about the Geya Chakra, the Giri Chakra, all the people there who live there, how that area looks like, and then zooms in into the Chintamani Griha, and then talks about all the devatas who are with Lalita, the Siddhi Devis, etc. And you can see the names of all of these people in Kadgamala as well. So they're all living near, she's always surrounded by all these Siddhi Devis. So they're all with her in the Meru. And then he zooms in to the throne where Lalita is sitting, and then he describes Kameshwara and how beautiful he looks, how handsome he looks, all the prowess of that Kameshwara. And then on his lap is sitting Lalita, and then he describes Lalita. So the 200 shlokas get you that close up, and it's a And this is what poetry is capable of doing, right? It makes the whole thing come alive in your imagination. And Lalita Stavaratnam does that amazingly. And at the end, there is a Lalita Kavacham. For those of you who are familiar with Kandasashti Kavasam, very similar to that, it asks Lalita to protect each and every part of her body. So Lalita Stavaratnam is one of the amazing shlokas, a very special one, given how beautifully it describes where Lalita lives and how she looks and all her power. So that is one thing. The second thing is Saundarya Lahari. We'll come back to it, but we'll look at Mukha Panchashati. So we've already seen Mukhacharya's story, how he was always in the Kanchi temple and he saw Kanchi Kamakshi's lips moving, and at that point he launched into this amazing poetry which is called as Mukha Panchashati. So Pancha means 5, Shati means 100. So this Mukha Panchashati has 500 slokas. So there is a little bit of a flashback about Mukhacharya. So we all know that Kalidasa was blessed by Devi, and that's how he became a poet. So once Kalidasa, along with some other poets who were in that time, were all in the King Bhoja's court. So the poets were Bhavabhuti and Dandi. So Kalidasa, Bhavabhuti, Dandi, and they're all great in their own right. But as it's normal, there is always comparison amidst people. So once a question came up as to who is a better poet among all of them. And these are all great by themselves. So there was nobody who was qualified to go judge who's great among these. And therefore they decided they will ask Devi herself to go and judge this. So then they called Devi and she came and she heard this whole thing. And then she said, Dandi is a pandit. A pandit is a well-learned person. And Bhavabhuti is a poet. So it is apples and oranges, and therefore you cannot compare the two, is what she gave as a verdict. And you can see in all of this, the question was, who's great among Kalidasa, Bhavabhuti and Dandi? But her answer only included Bhavabhuti and Dandi. And Kalidasa was right there. And you can imagine, he was someone who's so attached to Kali. His name itself is Kalidasa. So if she didn't even mention him, he got very upset. So he said, then who am I? And he didn't ask it as a who am I in a gentle way. He was actually angry, and with arrogance he asked, who am I? In Tamil, they say it as Naan Yaradi. Appodu Naan Yaradi. So he addressed her in singular in a disrespectful way. And at that time, Devi did not react to it, and she told him, Tvameva aham. That means, you are me. So you and I are one and the same. And so she thought he was living like that, right? There was no difference between Devi and Kalidasa. That is the extent that he had the blessing of Devi. But then now the Kalidasa felt very bad. He thought, oh my gosh, I did not realize, and with arrogance. And if you see, with all of the learning that we have, however great we are, how much ever we learn, Vidya Vinaya Sampannam. Vidya, the learning, should result in humility. So now this person was like, fighting amidst all the three and deciding who's great and all that. So clearly he was not at the point where he needed to be to reach that enlightenment. So Devi said, you have to be born again, and you will be born as someone who cannot speak. So who will not be capable of speaking from birth itself. And listening to this, Kalidasa was very upset, and he thought, oh my gosh, I've been a poet and I've enjoyed composing all this poetry on her. Now I will not even be able to speak. How can I then say any poetry? So then she said, don't worry, even though you're born as a person who cannot speak, I will still make sure that you will get the ability to speak in your next birth. And it is said that it is Kalidasa who was reborn as Mukhacharya, and then with the grace of Kamakshi, he got the ability to speak, and it just came as a flow from him. And these are the 500 amazing shlokas that he composed. And looking at this kind of a blessing from Kamakshi to Mukhacharya, then Shankaracharya asked him to become the 20th pontiff of the Shankaramatam. So Mukhacharya was also that's why we call him Mukhacharya. He was the 20th pontiff of the Shankaramatam. So the 500 shlokas, one speciality is every single shloka has either Kanchi or Kamakshi or Kamakoti or Kameshwari. So that will be there in every single shloka. So the 500 shlokas are divided into 5 chapters, if you will, and each one has about 100 shlokas. There is Arya Shatakam. Arya again is powerful, so it talks about the power of Lalitambika. There is also Padaravinda Shatakam. So Padaravinda Shatakam, Pada Aravinda Shatakam. Padam means feet, Aravindam is lotus feet. So it talks about the beauty of her lotus feet as well as the grace and blessings we can get as a result of holding her lotus feet. So that is there. And then there is a Stuti Shatakam. Stuti means praise. So it is all in praise of Lalitambika. And then there is also Kataksha Satakam. Kataksha means glance, sideway glance. So it talks about the merits of getting that sideway glance. And then there is also the Mandasmita Shatakam. Mandasmita means her smile, her gentle smile. So there is a whole 100 shlokas dedicated towards that. So anyone who reads the Mukha Panchashati, they will get all the prosperity in life. And even Lalita Stavaratnam as well as Mukha Panchashati, anyone who reads it is supposed to become eloquent in their speech. And in Mukha Panchashati, each shloka has a certain purpose, and if you recite that, it is supposed to achieve that purpose. So the other shloka out of the 3 is Saundarya Lahari. So the 3 shlokas are very special, and Saundarya Lahari, as we all know, was composed by Adi Shankaracharya. The 3 shlokas are special amidst all the shlokas of Lalita, but Saundarya Lahari is the crown jewel among the 3 jewels of Lalita. So Saundarya Lahari was composed by Adi Shankaracharya, and again this also describes Lalita. So let's look at a quick story related to how Saundarya Lahari came about. So once Acharya Shankara Bhagavad Padal, Adi Shankaracharya, he was in Kashi. At that time he visited Kailasha. So it is said that he went there and then he was able to meet Shiva himself. And Shiva was very pleased with Adi Shankaracharya's visit, and therefore he gave him a few gifts. And the first thing is he gave him 5 lingas. They are all Spatika lingas. He gave him that, and then he also gave him some palm leaves. And these were a set of shlokas that Shiva himself had composed on Lalitambika, Sri Vidya. And these are supposed to be the extreme secrets and that help one person achieve enlightenment, and it is initiating people into the Sri Vidya tradition. As we said, Shiva, Parameshwara is the first and foremost Sri Vidya Upasaka. So he had described all of this, and it has all this power and the techniques for reaching that. So he wrote all of that and he gave those palm leaves to Adi Shankaracharya. And Adi Shankaracharya was extremely pleased and blessed with this kind of a gift. You know, he gets a lingam, he gets the essence of Sri Vidya. What more can one ask for? So he bowed to Shiva, and then he left Kailasha. And as he was leaving Kailasha, we all know Nandikeshwara guards the entrance of Kailasha. So nobody can go near Shiva unless and until they get the permission of Shiva, and nobody can leave Kailasha unless and until they get the permission of Nandi, and they cannot leave Kailasha unless and until they get the permission of Nandi. So Nandi knew that Adi Shankaracharya went to meet Shiva. So when he came back, he asked him, what are you carrying from here? So he had to make sure that he knew what was happening. His job is to guard this whole thing. So Adi Shankaracharya showed him there were 5 lingas. Nandi was totally fine. The linga worship was already in the earth, and all the people knew about it. So Spatika Lingam was like perfectly okay with him. And then he saw that Adi Shankaracharya also showed the palm leaves. And then when he started to look at it, he realized this had all the secrets of Sri Vidya. And if you see, why is Sri Vidya such a secret, right? The Sri Vidya, the Tantra, Mantra, Yantra, etc. are actually really powerful. What do we mean by that? That means that if we apply ourselves with a single-minded devotion towards it, pronounce the mantra correctly, use the procedure and do it properly, then it will yield results. So it is like that. It is like a sure science. If at all, if we are chanting and it is not happening for us, then the difference must be in whether we are applying ourselves holistically to that. But if we apply, it will happen. So that's why with all the Sri Vidya things, there is always a caution to only introduce it to someone who is ready to receive it. We have seen even in Lalita Sahasranama, it will be there, it will be out in the world. It's not like nobody will know there is no Lalita Sahasranama, but the ability to chant it will come only when we are at a certain point. That is because if that works for us, then we should also be, for a lot of things, we have to be worthy of receiving that thing, right? Generally, if you see, every role will have certain responsibilities associated with it. If you're a doctor, there are certain things you cannot reveal the patient's one patient's thing to another, etc. So for everything, just like you have certain powers, with that there are also certain responsibilities. So Sri Vidya is like that. Anybody who practices is bound to get the power, and therefore they only give it to someone who will use it responsibly, and that means keeping our mental clarity, being able to. So that's why this is all guarded very much. And Nandi saw that this palm leaves were there, and these are all secrets that, if it fell into the wrong hands, it will become a problem. And he knows Adi Shankaracharya is going back to the earth, and there are human beings, and each human being is so much driven by desire. So he was a bit worried that this will fall into wrong hands. Not that Adi Shankaracharya will do anything, but it could get into the wrong hands. And therefore Nandi was not very happy that Shiva gave this palm leaves. And so Nandi took that and said, okay, take all the 5 lingas and go, no palm leaves. Adi Shankaracharya at that point was like beyond joy, right? It is like such a blessing for Parameshwara to share something he composed. And he's a jnani. Adi Shankaracharya is a jnani. He's also someone who's in the bhakti path. So this was like an amazing thing, and he was waiting to learn from this. And now Nandi took all the palm leaves. And therefore Adi Shankaracharya said, no, Shiva gave it to me. It was a gift from him. Please give it back. So he pulled it. And then Nandi said, no, these are secrets. They cannot go outside of Kailasha. So Nandi pulled it back. So with each one pulling, the palm leaves, they tore, and 41 shlokas ended up with Adi Shankaracharya, and 59 ended up with Nandi. So there were totally 100 shlokas that Shiva gave. So 41 stayed with Adi Shankaracharya, 59 went to Nandi. So now Adi Shankaracharya felt very bad. This was like a treasure that came into his hands, and he was waiting to learn more about it, and now this is now torn, and he felt very embarrassed too. And so he felt like he had to go tell Shiva. So he went back into Kailasa and he said, this happened. Nandi at the entrance tore this, and he has the 59. He is not giving it to me. What am I supposed to do? Then Shiva smiled and he said, you know what? The first 41, you keep it as is. You keep that as the gift that I gave you. For the remaining 59 that went into Nandi's hands, you yourself go and compose the slokas, write about Sri Vidya, describe Lalita, tell her, do that. And so Adi Shankaracharya said okay, and then he came back. And when he came back, the 5 lingas that he got, they are all with the different Shankara matams. You all know that there are 6 matams. That's why Adi Shankaracharya is called as Shanmata Sthapaka. So there are 6 of them, and then there are all these lingas in all of those places. And even today, all the Shankaracharyas, they do Chandramaulishwara puja, and it is said that these lingas are used for that particular puja. So he gave all of that. And so after he established all the matas and everything, now he's trying to compose the Saundarya Lahari. The task seems overwhelming for him. Now think about it. The first 41 composed by Shiva himself, and he is the leading Sri Vidya Upasaka. We all know the merits of Shiva, the power of Shiva. How can anybody follow suit with Shiva? How can you compose something that's good enough to follow Shiva? So that was daunting. Okay, then at least if he's starting to think about the subject matter expert, okay, can't write it as well as Shiva, but I'll try something else. The subject matter is Sri Vidya, right? It is Lalitambika. It is the most guarded secret, and not everybody knows everything about it. So that is also not something he is an expert in, right? He is a great philosopher. Is he a great expert in Sri Vidya? That was a problem. So the author who did the first 41, very hard to follow, amazing author. The subject that it is written about is also amazing. Who's qualified to talk about Lalitambika? We have seen, right? She is nirupama. That means she is incomparable. On what basis, on what will be right? So that is also a problem. Okay, if you don't want to take it so overwhelming and you think, okay, Shiva wrote about his wife. Now Adi Shankaracharya has a problem there too. He's a sannyasi. He has no wife. So he doesn't know how to write about it. So now this is becoming very daunting. And then that's where the first shloka is helping Adi Shankaracharya. He realizes that he has been blessed to write this thing. Because if you look at the first shloka in Saundarya Lahari, it says, Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitam Nachi Devam Devo Nakalu Kushala Spanditum Api. Right? So what it says is, only when Shiva is joined with Shakti, he is capable of doing anything. If that's not so, he certainly cannot even move. Spandanam means pulsing. That means the tiniest movement. That is also not possible. Atastvam Aradhyam Harihara Virinchadibirapi Pranantum Stotum Va Katam Akrita Punyaha Pravavati. So then he says, Shiva cannot even make a tiniest movement without Shakti. If that is the case, in the next two lines, Ataha, therefore, Tvam, you, or Aradhyam Harihara Virinchadibir Api. So she is not someone who is worshipped by Shiva alone. It's not like Shiva is a Srividya Upasaka. She is also worshipped by Aradhyam Hari Hara Virincha. So Hari means Vishnu, Virincha is Brahma. So she is someone who is worshipped by all the three, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. So she is that great, right? So Shiva won't even make a movement without you, and you who is worshipped by Harihara and Virincha, how is it Pranantum stotum va katam akrita punyaha prabhavati? If someone has not done any merits, akrita punyaha, that means has not done anything good, does not have your blessings, then how will that person be able to bow down to you and pranantum stotum va, to sing praises of you? So if someone, how will anyone who has not got any blessings of you be able to do it? Because she is great. She is worshipped by all the three gods, and she is someone without whom Shiva will not do anything. So at that point he realized this is Lalita herself blessing him to say, go write about me. So now that he knows he has her blessings, he went ahead, attempted to write the remaining. With that he composed all the 59. So Adi Shankaracharya realized that he has the blessing and it is her agnya to go and write about him. And with that he started to write. And you can all see, and Saundarya Lahari is so popular, you will hear so many things about it. Some of the most beautiful poems, if you look at it from a Sanskrit poetic perspective, it is the excellent poetry. You will not see anything like this anywhere else. They have the bhakti rasam, yet it has an amazing thought, and sometimes there is also the Adi Shankaracharya touch. There is a dry humor, the thought that he expresses. So whether you want to look at it as bhakti, whether you want to look at it as poetry, it is par excellence. It is amazing, and each particular shloka has its own purpose, and we can chant it to achieve a certain thing. And if you look at that, the poetry, and it just tells you, it is Adi Shankaracharya who also wrote Bhajagovindam. And Bhajagovindam, he wrote it at a layman Sanskrit level. So there the intent was to communicate wisdom in a simple way to understand. And here the intent was to communicate wisdom and bhakti. But in the, you can see how, what a great poet Adi Shankaracharya is using Saundarya Lahari. So whether for the bhakti value, whether for the poetic value, or for the wisdom that is found in that, Saundarya Lahari is amazing. And always with Adi Shankaracharya, humility is a big virtue there. And if you see in the 100th shloka, he finally says that, I've composed all of this and I've taken words that belong to you and given it back to you. And it is like showing Nirajana for the sun. So it is taking his own fire and light and giving it back to him. It is like giving tarpana to the ocean, taking his own water and doing tarpana for the ocean. So it is like giving what belongs already to you back to you. So then he says, this is not anything that I did. So he's not claiming ownership for Saundarya Lahari and saying, I did this. He's saying, it's because of you. And in there is also that wisdom that everything is Lalita, everything, whether we speak, whether we think, whether we say, whether it's a tree, whether it's an animal, whether it's a human being, everything is Lalita, everything belongs to her, and that is the conclusion that he gives. So the first 41 shlokas that came from Kailasha are called as Ananda Lahari, and then the remaining 59, they are Saundarya Lahari, but the total composition is also called as Saundarya Lahari. And Saundaryam means beauty. And what is it synonymous of? It is synonymous of Lalita Tripura Sundari. Tripura Sundari, she is the most beautiful woman in all the three worlds. So Saundaryam is equal to Lalita. So when you see Saundarya Lahari, it is all about Lalita. And if you look at Lahari, Lahari means waves. So it's like the waves on the beach, right? So it is the Lahari. But the Lahari in Sanskrit is not a gentle wave. It is not the wave that will come and gently touch your feet when you're standing in the beach. Lahari is a powerful wave. It is a wave that the surfers catch. And if you've all seen the surfers go, the waves that they go in is capable of completely enveloping them, right? It can completely encapsulate them. So the Saundarya Lahari means that if you chant these slokas with devotion, with proper pronunciation, with the way that it's been said to be done, then Lalita will come and envelop us. Her grace will envelop us, and she will completely take us under her wings and bless us with everything that we desire and also lead us towards the right path. So with that, I pray that Lalitambika's blessings be upon all of us. That's all for today.